Okay, we're recording. Awesome. Thanks to all of you students who are in our room. We're really happy to have you. Maybe we can just go ahead and we can all introduce ourselves. I mean, we already got our subject and where we go and stuff, but we can sort of say, name, pronouns, college, course, and then we will get started with some other questions. I can go first. Hey, everyone. My name is Joanna. My pronouns are she, her. I am at St Hilda's College, Oxford, and I study economics and management. I'll be chairing the discussion today, and I'm the co-founder of UniPear, which is a mentoring platform which provides one-on-one mentoring throughout your application process, totally free. And you sort of just sign up and you get paired with a personal mentor who will help you from everything from crafting your personal statement all the way through to helping you with your interview practice. So it's a very tailored personal mentor who will be there for you throughout your application process. I'll just go through like who's on my screen where. Kirsty, do you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Kirsty. My pronouns are she, her, and I study history and politics at Cambridge.
Adam, do you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Adam. I'm he, him. I study maths at Selwyn College, Cambridge.
Amazing, thank you. Sadia, am I saying your name correct? I think you're next.
Hi, I'm Sadia. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm doing law at Oxford.
Awesome, we've got a pretty good spread. And finally, Alice.
Hi, I'm Alice. My pronouns are she, her, and I study chemistry at St Hugh's College, Oxford.
Amazing. Cool. Thank you everyone so much for introducing yourselves. We can sort of go ahead by starting with thinking about some of those myths that we saw right at the beginning of the presentation. And the first one is Oxbridge is all work and no play. So what has been your experience of a work-life balance at Oxford or Cambridge? Maybe we can go sort of in reverse order. Alice, do you want to comment on that one?
Well, I found it definitely more easy than I thought to have. I thought it would be before I came, like all work, no play, but there's definitely, you can definitely have the balance. Like we often, like our household often get together and do like film nights and stuff and, fun things. It's definitely not just all work.
That's great. And also something maybe we want to mention which year of study we're in, that might be.
Oh yeah, I'm a fresher, so I've not really had much opportunity to do any like societies and stuff, so
there's plenty of time to get involved with that later on. Amazing. What about you, Sadia? What has been your experience?
So I do law and that's quite intensive, but I found it to be quite similar to Alice in that I thought it would be very, very like, full on with the academics and not enough time to enjoy myself. But I found not the opposite, but I have a lot more free time than you would think. And that might be because my subject is very unstructured. So I decide when and where I want to put the time in. But I think with most subjects, you probably can find a pretty good balance. And yeah, doing things with your household and things like that is always really good.
And what year are you in study?
I'm also a fresher.
Nice. What about you, Adam? What's been over at Cambridge? What's the work balance like there?
Well, I haven't actually had to give up a social event that I've been invited to do more work. That being said, like I have pulled a few nights where I'm just working, not all nighters, but like maybe a few hours past the deadline if the deadline is at midnight. Yeah, and I'm also a freshman and I also do like movie nights and stuff on my household. I'm not at college at the moment though. I wasn't invited back for Lent for the second term. So it's upsetting, but like what can you do? I do try and socialize as much as possible, but that's it.
Fabulous. And what about you, Kirsty?
I'm also a fresher, but I think I found in my experience, because the workload, like there is like a high workload, it almost encourages everyone that when they're not doing work, that we'll all go out and do something, whether that just be like going for a walk or like have drinks or like get involved with stuff. So I think having a high workload, like everyone wants to keep the balance to kind of retain some normality in their day.
Yeah, definitely. I think that they're like Oxbridge has a lot of work, but that doesn't mean that you can't have a lot of fun too. I think if you compare it to another university, maybe you're working more than your friends there, but I think you know that, and you come to Oxbridge because you really love your course, so you're willing to put in a little bit more work, and there's definitely time for fun as well, I promise. And I'm a second year, so I experienced at least 2 terms of normality, although not much more than that. Perfect. The second myth to think about is like, I'm not the Oxbridge type, I'll never fit in. And the question is sort of like, have you found, or did you find, like, how did you find settling in and making friends? And I think, especially since you're all first years, so you joined sort of in the COVID time, I can imagine that that's sort of harder than usual. So if you guys can do it, then hopefully anyone can, right? I'm not sure if anyone in particular wants to start with that one.
Well, I found it like a lot easier to make friends when I joined. I thought everyone's going to be like really like a lot of people from like private schools and stuff, but I found definitely it was just really easy to make friends, even despite COVID times and not being many like social activities. Everyone's just really nice.
Anyone else want to hop in on that one?
Yeah, I found pretty much the same. I think people are a lot more friendly. Like, even if you are a bit worried about, my college has a very high private school intake or something like that, a lot of people, despite their backgrounds, are very easy to get along with and be friends with.
Like, I don't see what the problem is with private schools. Like, if you want to socialize with someone, then socialize with them. Like, it doesn't matter whether you come from a private school or a public school or didn't even go to school. But like, if you want to talk to someone, then talk to them. Yeah, anyway, that's the way.
Yeah, just like similar to what was said before, I was really nervous before I went because I thought no one would be like similar to me, or everyone just wanted to work all the time and things like that. But honestly, like, you'll find everyone is so much more normal than you might think, and everyone just wants to make friends with people. Like, most people are all in the same boat. So
Yeah, I think so. I think my biggest fear coming to uni was that I was going to make no friends and I was going to have a horrible time. But everyone is really lovely, and has been said, like, everyone's in the same boat. And I think that you're sort of, when you come into Oxford, no one is going to ask you, where did you go to school, what did you study, what grades did you get, what do your parents do? Like, those aren't questions. People care more about sort of who you are and your personality. And the best thing about university is that there's so many more people for you to find your crowd, whether that's in your college, maybe that's in your subject, or at a society. So there's definitely people there for you. So don't be afraid of that. The third myth is that getting into Oxbridge is impossible. And firstly, I'd have to say, you know, we're all here, so clearly it's not impossible. And then thinking about sort of the specifics, why is it that you wanted to go to university, and also in specific, why Oxbridge? Kirsty, do you want to go first with that one?
I really don't have a very profound answer, but I just really like, well, both history and politics, and I just wanted to learn more about it, to be honest. I just wanted to carry on studying it. And I mean, for me, applying to Cambridge was kind of on a whim. I was just kind of advised that teachers kind of was like, why don't you do that? So I just did it, not really thinking too much about it, which was probably best because I am an overthinker. So
What about you, Adam?
Well, I got into maths pretty much in year 4, like very early on, and then I decided to go to Cambridge back then, because like in year 6, essentially what happened was my friend, who was also really into maths, I was leaving the school, and essentially what I decided to do was, since we weren't going to be seeing each other again, we just decided to meet together again at Cambridge. But of course, she didn't get in, sadly. Yeah, that's my reason for going.
That's a pretty impressive long-term commitment to Oxbridge. I'm glad that someone was thinking that early. What about you, Sadia?
For me, Oxford wasn't something I'd thought about up until I think maybe mid-year 12, late year 12, because I think I kind of fell victim to the myth that I just wouldn't be able to get in. And I thought, why bother trying if I'm going to set myself up to fail? But I went to an Oxford Open Day, and then I attended some events, and my school were very good with support. And I realized it's a lot more accessible, I think, than people understand. And I thought I'd give it a go, and well, I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. You never know unless you try. Alice, what about you?
I was definitely one of the people who thought like I'd never get in, they'd never give my kind of personal statement a second look. So I think it's also about having the confidence to apply. Like a lot of the time, you might as well like give it a go, even if you don't think you're getting, because the worst that can happen is you won't get in, but you'll get into another really good university. And you know, the best is that you do get an offer.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. It's only one of 5 choices, right? So you'll always have 4 other places. And I actually only got into 3 of my 5 choices, of which Oxford was one of those. So also don't be disheartened when it comes to the application process if somewhere rejects you, because there's no way you won't get into at least 1 or 2 of your choices, or in my case 3. So it's always worth applying. From my perspective, I lived and went to school in Oxford. So I was always sort of aware of what Oxbridge was, but sort of decided to apply based on the course. I thought it was exactly the kind of course that I wanted to do and wasn't really available in other places. Even like not thinking about all of the wonderful, like the college system and the quality of the education. I just thought it was the format of the subject was something I really wanted to do. And finally, the last myth is that life at Oxford is really stressful. And I think we sort of touched this when we said about balancing work and play, but how have you guys managed to, or have you managed to look after your mental health whilst at Oxbridge? And I guess this ties very strongly to, the pandemic going at the same time. What do you think, Alice?
Well, I'd say maybe with the pandemic, it's been a little bit more stressful, but like definitely I take regular breaks and stuff, just go for walks. We often get emailed from our like college nurse about different like mental health and welfare like things to do. So yeah, it's been mental health isn't something like personally I've had an issue with.
That's always positive to hear.
Yeah.
What about you, Sadia?
So my college is really good in that they have loads of welfare events, and I'm pretty sure most colleges, if not all of them, have like a welfare officer you can speak to if you don't feel comfortable reaching out to a member of staff or an adult at your college. There is the university-wide counselling website if you need that, but for me, I just found, because it was so stressful during the day with your workload, and then of course with the pandemic wasn't so great, it's quite nice if you plan to do things with your friends and like scatter them out throughout the week, because then you have something to look forward to.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, mentioning the sort of welfare structure that Oxford has. Adam, do you think that Cambridge has sort of similar good support?
Yeah, because at the start, when we started in Michaelmas, well, that's the first term for people who don't speak the lingo. Essentially, what they did is they had massive presentations about who you could talk to. You could talk to the dean, you could talk to the dean of the chapel, you could talk to your friends, you could talk to the tutor, you could talk to the director of studies about any single problem that you could have. And so they've got like this massive layered support structure, and I don't really see any reason to have mental health problems when there's just such a massive framework to deal with them. Like they've got gardening clubs to help you with help you manage stress, but of course I can't really take advantage of them because I'm at home at the moment. But yeah.
I like the idea of a gardening club. What about you, Kirsty?
Yeah, like kind of same, like there's no denying it is stressful, and it becomes certain like more stressful at certain times than others, but there is something about the fact that everyone is kind of in the same boat. So at least I found with my like household, the people that I specifically like lived with, we'd all kind of have each other to vent to because we were all going through kind of similar things, and similar stresses, and similar to what's said, kind of planning, always like working towards something. Like we'd always try and plan things, so we always had stuff to look forward to. So even if it was like a really stressful or tough week, there'd always be kind of an end point in sight to look forward to.
Yeah, I think it's sort of there's loads of strategies to sort of try and keep afloat, and lots of support as well. Something as well in terms of the welfare structure, at least at Oxford, is that every college has peer supporters. I'm one of those, and that is fellow students who are trained to help deal with welfare concerns. So even if you're not comfortable going to an adult or to your personal tutor or to, you know, someone in a senior position, you can go to sort of designated people who are your age, who you know and who are familiar, which I think is a really nice addition to sort of to the welfare structure. Okay, moving on to sort of some questions about like the exact courses that you do for people who are interested. How did you choose, how and why did you choose your course, and what do you enjoy most about your course right now? Kirsty, do you want to go first?
I mean, as I said before, I pretty much chose history and politics because those are the two things that I kind of just loved. And what was the second question? Sorry.
It's how and why did you choose your course, and what do you enjoy most about it?
Oh, and sorry, I think like the best thing about my course, which is definitely similar across a lot of like humanities subjects, especially like the ones that I know people at Cambridge doing, is they're so like versatile in that every week I find that I'm doing very different things, and so it feels like the workload is almost being broken up by studying like a wide variety of areas. So I definitely really like that because it means it really keeps me engaged when I start getting a bit fed up with the work.
I definitely think so. What about you, Adam? Why maths, and what do you enjoy about it?
Well, maths is basically just like playing a game. It's not really about numbers anymore. Once you get to university, well, they don't really. I'm going to say something controversial. They don't really teach maths at school. They just teach you how to just. They don't teach you how to solve problems. They just teach you algorithms to just apply and write down in the exam and put in your calculator. They don't actually teach you how to think about a problem and manifest a solution in your head. So like actually having to do that for long periods of time is quite stressful at first, but then you get really used to it. So I think and it's like playing a game almost. I'd say in terms of how I chose this particular maths course, sorry, I'm buffering at the moment. How I chose this particular maths course instead of perhaps at the same one at Oxford is the Oxford course is very pure maths, but the Cambridge course you get to like choose your modules. You can in the first year you have to do half applied, half pure. But in the second year, you can choose whether you want to do applied or pure. And one thing I would say is that the step exam is much more difficult, but it's after A level. So it's like 2 exams, each of 3 hours. And this time it didn't actually get cancelled for me. So I actually had an exam last June or last July or something. And it was the most stressful thing I've ever done, but I think it was worth it because it was really fun. The actual exam itself was really fun, and I felt once I finished it, I felt a sense of achievement. Like with the Oxford maths exam, I think it's called the MAT. Basically, you do it at the same time as all the other admissions tests, and after you finish it, it's just that's the only uni maths that you actually do, and then you've got to plow onto A level some more. But here but with Cambridge, you're actually building up to something, and you're going to all these support sessions in advance, and like I really enjoyed that process of revising the exam and then doing it.
I'm glad to hear that some exams are enjoyable. It's positive, at least then you know that you definitely love maths. What about you, Sadia?
So the law course at most universities will be the same because you have to do a certain number of certain modules for you to have a qualifying law degree. But within that, there are going to be modules that you can choose to do on top of the ones that are required. And so an important difference between Cambridge and Oxford is at Oxford, the law course requires you to do jurisprudence, which is kind of like legal philosophy, and that's not compulsory, I don't think, at Cambridge. But I did philosophy as an A-level and I really enjoyed it. So that didn't bother me too much. And my favorite aspect of the course, I think, is, I mean, of course, we have to write loads of essays and that's not as fun, but you also have to do something called problem questions, which is where they give you like the most bizarre scenario ever. And you just have to think like an actual lawyer and solve it. And those are actually quite fun to do.
I feel like my only knowledge of law is what I've seen in Suits, and it feels very glamorous. So I hope that at least some of that is preserved in your law degree.
They do have very fancy balls and law events, to be fair.
Oh, there we go. So there's something. And what about you, Alice?
So I chose chemistry, similar to Kirsty, just because that was the subject I really liked at A-level. And like at GCSE, it's always been one of my favourite subjects. And I chose the Oxford course because they have in the fourth year they have a research year, which is quite like unique. You like have a year like a pure kind of working in like research. And my favourite part of the course, I'd say, is like the practical aspect, because I like, you know, the balance between the practical and the like more like just the theory, like just like writing questions and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's something really unique about a lot of the science degrees at Oxford, and I'm not sure if it's the same at Cambridge, but you usually have an integrated master's in your fourth year, which has the double benefit of, you know, coming out with a master's degree as well. You don't have to do the master's if you don't want to, but also it's the cheapest way you'll ever have to get a master's degree, which is always nice. Why did I choose E&M? I think I always knew that I wanted to go into something business related after university, and studying economics and management was sort of the best way to get there. What I love about the course is that usually when you go to university, you either study economics or you study management. Management is like business management. It's about business. But very few universities actually combine both elements. And so that was something really nice about the Oxford course. Cool, we're going to move on to now some sort of like tips for the application process. So thinking firstly about the personal statement, which is sort of the first element of the application process. What was it like for each of you to write your personal statement, and what is like your top tip for personal statements? Alice, do you want to go first with that?
Well, I found it really difficult to write a personal statement. I found it like really difficult to like write about like myself and saying like, oh, look what I've done. I didn't like it at all. But I found it really useful to like make a list first of like things I'd done like throughout the years. So then when it actually came to writing the personal statement, I could just kind of dump it all on one page, and it was kind of, and then all I had to do was just make into like paragraphs. I found it really useful to ask different teachers at school to just give it a read through and give me some of their feedback. Was quite brutal, to be honest. That's on my first drafts. So I found that really useful.
Definitely. It's a bit of tough love, I think, but it's in your best interest. What about you, Sadia?
Yeah, I had the same problem as Alice. I hated that I had to write about myself and about why I really liked the degree, even though I did really like the degree. And I've also found it quite useful to list down all the things that I thought were relevant to my personal statement so I could include it. And I actually found I had a lot left over, and I got my teacher referee to include that in my reference for me. So anything you can't fit into your personal statement, you can ask your teacher to put in your reference. And I also found it quite helpful to ask, one bit of really good advice I got was to ask 3 people only, who I really trust and who I think would be very valuable in critiquing my personal statement for their opinions, because sometimes you can have too many conflicting opinions. And I actually had a friend at Oxford doing law at my college who I got to read my personal statement. I also had a teacher. They also had another university student check it for me, and I had about 5 drafts before I was finished. So if you do end up having loads of drafts, that's perfectly normal and okay.
Yeah, I think that's a really good piece of advice, and it's also what I'd say is that it's really great to get loads of people's advice and feedback, but at the end of the day, it's your personal statement. So make sure that it has your voice and reflects the things that you think are important, and you don't need to take every piece of advice on if you don't think that it's authentic to you. So get good advice, but also don't feel like you have to take on board everything, especially since I guarantee you that everyone you give it to will probably have some conflicting piece of advice for someone else. So you can never satisfy everything about everyone. What about you, Adam?
Well, the advice I would give is don't actually read other people's personal statements. Well, take advice from them, but don't actually read what they wrote, because it's better if you, at least this was the advice we were given when we were writing it. It's better if you just write it from your own tongue, like in your own words. When I was writing it, oh yeah, one thing that I would say is in Cambridge, I don't know how it is in Oxford, but in Cambridge they give you the SAQ, which is the short answer questionnaire, if you get an interview. And what that does is it allows you to write an extra little bit of personal statement. So you're limited to 4,000 characters at the start, and they give you an extra 1,200. So if you really want to write more stuff about yourself, maybe you read, I don't know, 10 books and you only managed to put 7 or something. Then you can put the extra 3 in the SAQ. Personally, in my personal statement, I put a load of books, and I only put like 3 lines of extracurricular activities because I don't think they care that much about extracurriculars. They usually care more about supercurricular.
And Kirsty, what about you?
Yeah, quite similar to what's been said before, but I mean, I hated it because when you think about it, I mean, at least in my experience, I'd never written anything like that before, where you're basically just bigging yourself up about what you've done. It is definitely quite difficult to write, but yeah, I think definitely keeping almost a running like Word document open like through the year of like if you're reading any books, like online articles, and just like write a quick sentence about like what you thought of it. That will become so useful when you come to write your personal statement. And yeah, I didn't actually end up having any like extracurriculars in my personal statement. It was all just put in my referencing because I was horribly over the word count, and I was doing anything I could to cut it down, because it is actually a lot shorter than you think it is. And then I think something like worth mentioning is the SAQ, which is the thing that you are sent, like the big form that you're sent if you get an interview. Something that I know some other people did is they were applying for a subject at Cambridge. They weren't applying for the same subject at other universities. So I know someone who was applying for human, social and political sciences, but was applying for like politics at other unis. So they weren't writing about say like anthropology in their personal statement. So then you can use this extra little personal statement to talk about something that you might not feel is very useful for your other universities. So I think that's definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice about the fact that I'm not sure about other subjects at Oxford, but I don't think it's the case that you have this sort of extra personal statement questions at Oxford. It might be for certain subjects, but your tutors don't expect you to talk about very niche elements of a course if you're not applying to that specific combination at other universities. So just try and tie it in somewhere, but they don't expect you to give it equal weighting if it's not an element of your course elsewhere. I'm aware that we don't have too much time left, so it would be great to hear from you guys about what you think tutors are looking for in a prospective applicant generally, and then specifically to your course. And maybe Kirsty, if you want to go first with that one.
I think generally a big thing, because like we said in the presentation, the system at Oxbridge is centered around the tutorial or supervision system. It's like small group teaching. So I think a lot of the interview is seeing how you fit to that kind of teaching. So how much you, when they're speaking, how much you listen to what they say and how much you're then applying that to what you're saying. Like I think that's a big thing that they're looking out for, because they want to have someone that they think could be like teachable in that kind of like situation. And I think they are really looking for someone who is just not like the way you think, but they want to see that you're thinking about like the bigger picture of a lot of things, and like when you're saying something, you recognize kind of like, say, the wider implications of what you're saying, at least for history and politics, which are very humanities subjects. They're kind of, and also they just want someone who can talk about something that they don't necessarily know about, but they can kind of respond to a little bit of information you've been told, and at least in my case, pretend to be able to form an opinion about what they're saying. But yeah, I think the main thing is just kind of, you don't need to rush into any answers. And like, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for someone who actually thinks about what they're about to say, because then you're most likely to give like valuable answers and discussion points.
Yeah, that's helpful. What about for a completely different subject at Cambridge, Adam? What's that like?
Could you repeat the question, please?
The question is, what are tutors looking for in a prospective applicant generally, and then specifically for maths?
Generally, I'd say they're looking for someone that can learn effectively in small groups, in a small group environment where there's a lot of pressure from the interviewer. Like at school, you've got a load of people with you. If you don't want to answer a question, you can just put your head down or just sit at the back of the class or something. And you can choose the level that you're interacting with the learning. But at Cambridge or at Oxford, you're literally with two other people, or maybe even one, or maybe you're just alone with the supervisor. And you're really going to get grilled if you don't know what you're talking about. So I suppose that the interview is like a mock supervision, like where people they'll ask you sort of questions about the course while you put in your interview, and I literally woke up like 5 minutes before this thing started. So anyway, specifically for maths, I'd say in my interview I got a graph sketching question. And I'll give you a little tip. If you're applying for maths, you're going to get a graph sketching question, because those are the most versatile things you can encounter. But it was deep. It was way deeper than any other A-level graph sketching questions I've ever encountered. Like usually at A-level, you're like, find the derivative, set it equal to 0. That's the minimum or the maximum, or whatever. And but here I was like, find the third derivative, explain what that sort of stuff means. confuse a bunch of limits and stuff. Like it was way deeper, but it was so enjoyable. So just have fun. Basically, if you're passionate about a subject, it will come out in the interview. So be passionate and learn hard.
Yeah, I think passion's really important. What about you, Sadia? What do you think tutors are looking for?
I think generally they're just looking for someone they can, like it was said earlier, during tutorials and supervisions, they're usually quite small. So my tutorials are usually with one other person, sometimes two. And if you're not talking or if you don't have a lot to say, it gets very awkward very quickly. So I think what they're looking for is someone who is able to formulate an opinion or be able to discuss something, and also someone who's not afraid to ask questions about whether it be about something they don't understand or something they think may be wrong in an article they've read. I think that's what they're looking for generally, and specifically I think with law they're looking for someone with critical reasoning and analysis skills, because I guess with law a lot of people might think it's quite black and white, you know, you learn a bunch of rules and then you apply them, but most of it is actually very grey. And I think the best way I can explain it is it's not something being necessarily right or wrong. That's not exactly what the tutors are looking for, because a lot of it is persuasion. So it's just being able to persuasively argue that the way you see things is right. And you'll also get a lot of articles and in the reading, you'll get a lot of things with conflicting opinions, and they'll expect you to be able to talk about why you think one view is better than the other. So I think it's critical reasoning and analysis that they're looking for.
Yeah, that's great. What about you, Alice? What do you think?
I think they're looking for like problem solving as well. So taking like, especially in the interview, we were given like quite a lot of new concepts that like it wasn't on the A-level specification, and just how we dealt with like lots of new information.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we have a question. So in terms of what I think tutors are looking for, especially for a subject like economics and management, which you're not required to have studied either of them at university. I think they're just looking for people who are really passionate, as Adam said, who sort of read around the subject, who can think, as Kirsty said, about like and apply the logical reasoning as well, and then also are good at approaching problems. In terms of foundation year, there are lots of foundation years, definitely at Oxford. I'm not sure if there's one specific to medicine, but there are foundation years, so do explore that, and they're becoming more popular. Thank you all so much for being for the mentors, for speaking, and for the students and the teachers who are in this call. I've just put the link to UniPear in case any of you are interested in mentoring, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Monday.
For coming back. Just waiting for all the breakout rooms to close. Again, can we ask you, if you are a student or a teacher, can you just turn off your camera and your mic, because we will begin recording again in just a moment.